Penn State taking a 14-0 first quarter lead on two nice touchdown passes from Drew Aller. Boise State made it a three-point game on their first possession of the third quarter, but the Nittany Lions answered right back. Star tight end Tyler Warren catching his second touchdown of the game. Fourth quarter, Boise State missed a field goal, and then Penn State put the game away on a Nick Singleton 58-yard touchdown run. As for Boise State's biggest star, Heisman runner-up Ashton Jeanty finished with 104 yards rushing. He needed 132 to break Barry Sanders' record. Jeanty comes up short, 28 yards short. He fumbled twice, lost one of them. Boise State had 4 turnovers in the game, and Penn State beats Boise State 31-14 to advance to the CFP Semifinals. Coach James Franklin and the Nittany Lions will play the winner of Georgia and Notre Dame. That game will be in the Orange Bowl. Set it up and break it down. Welcome in former Louisiana running back Emory Hunt and two-time national champ Damian Harris, who's got the cowboy hat on. He was pulling for the Broncos. And Damian, a lot of what went down in this game was the fact that Penn State's defense was able to contain Ashton Jeanty and made this team one-dimensional. What'd you see?
Well, I saw two things. First of all, I saw Boise State with a lot of self-inflicted wounds, whether it's the turnovers, whether it's the penalties, whether it was not being able to block the front or, stop the run game from Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. And then I saw Penn State play hero ball. Drew Aller played spectacular. He had 3 touchdown passes. Tyler Warren, 2 touchdown catches, 1 that was spectacular. And the backs combined for over 200 yards, averaged about 8 yards a carry. I mean, that was the storyline of the game. Ashton Jeanty played well. I mean, you could tell that his offensive line had never blocked a front like this by the amount of hits that he was taking to the line of scrimmage. But even the fact that he still churned out 100 yards, I think we can stop with the narrative of, oh, well, they play in the G5. They play a weak schedule. Ashton Jeanty's not really that good of a running back. Listen, I know he had 2 fumbles today and he didn't put up his usual numbers, but I mean, that was about as hard fought of a battle from a running back that you'll ever see, especially after the target on him that was on his back took a cheap shot. He handled it with class. He just got up and kept playing. So, that was the moral of the story. Like I said, Boise State kind of shot themselves in the foot too many times against a team that was better than them. And then the superstars for Penn State, they showed up and they showed out.
Yeah. Ashton Jeanty had a heck of a season. I mean, there's no question about it. Was the Heisman runner-up, over 2,500 yards rushing. He comes up short on the record set by Barry Sanders. This was his 14th game, so people were going to judge that anyway. Damian, they were going to say, well, even if he broke the record, they're going to say, oh, well, he did it in 14 games. Barry only did it in 11. They didn't count his bowl game that he had over 220 yards rushing in 1988. So, Emory, when you look at this game was won by Penn State's defense, forcing Boise State into turnovers and miscues.
And also, Boise State didn't take advantage of Penn State not taking advantage of those turnovers, because we saw Penn State get the football off of turnovers and quickly turn the ball over right back, and Boise State just couldn't capitalize. You had Maxson having success throwing the football, and Jeanty was doing his thing running the ball. And when you have game breakers like that, you just keep giving those guys the football, and eventually that one is going to pop. And we saw that at points in the ball game, but had they been able to capitalize, a couple of missed field goals, didn't convert when they had the opportunity, those long sustained drives ended up with nothing. And those penalties, like Damian talked about, it just consistently started to snowball downhill to where it was so much, because at the end of the day, on the other side, we saw their defense get pressure against Penn State. We saw them be able to frustrate the passing game and get Penn State off the field. They just couldn't capitalize and put points up on the board. This is something that we hadn't seen from Boise State all season long, and I think that's why they ultimately lost this ball game. But 2,600 yards, 2,600 American yards, when they know you're getting the football, that in and of itself is insane. That's the one part that no one's talking about. Like, they know if we stop Jeanty, we can stop this offense, and people still couldn't stop Jeanty.
Yeah, Cowboy hat tip to Damian and to Jeanty for over 2,600 yards rushing.
And Emory, I want to follow that up by saying, to the conversation about, oh, well, they don't count an extra game for Barry Sanders and he did it in less games. Well, how many times did Ashton Jeanty sit out of the second half? How many reps did he miss just because he performed so well and put them in a position to where he didn't have to play? So maybe in a couple of those games, if they're closer games, if they're playing better competition, maybe he has more carries, maybe he does break the record. But nonetheless, I mean, again, tip your hat to Ashton Jeanty. Not only is he a special football player, but he seems like a special kid. He seems like a kid kid of good faith, a kid of good character. I mean, he's obviously a phenomenal leader, the way that he got his guys to rally around him and play their best all year. So I'm wishing Ashton Jeanty all the best in the future in the NFL and all of his life endeavors. I mean, he's got a fan in me for life. So special season and a special player for sure.
What I love most, too, just to put a nice little bow on it, is that me and him the same size. 5'9", 215. So you saw all those backs on the list. Marcus Allen, 6'2", 220. You also look at Kevin Smith with 6'2". And we talked about Melvin Gordon, about 5'11", 6 feet, 215. So shout out to the guys that are shorter in stature and proving that size is not a skill. 2,600 yards when they know you're getting the football is a fantastic feat.
Heck of a season for Ashton Jeanty. Heck of a game for Drew Aller. 3 touchdown passes. Were you inspired by what you saw from Drew Aller? Because some of those passes, they were dimes.
Yeah, in the first half, because in the first half, he was dropping some pearls out there, but guys wasn't catching the football. And it's because their defense was so good against Boise State, is that when you look at this from a Penn State perspective, if you're a coach, you're like, okay, we got a lot we can go into next week and build upon. We got to make sure we tie up loose ends. We had some big plays that we missed. Receivers have to find ways to work open versus one-on-one coverage. We can't allow a lot of meat to stay on the bone. And if that happens against Notre Dame or Georgia, we're going to lose a game like we could have lost tonight. But they just lucky they got enough to beat Boise State. But Aller played well. I thought the offensive line finally figured out how to pick up stunts in the second half because they were getting abused up front. But the run game was there. They started to lean more into that in the second half, which helped them close out the game.
Damian, when you look at Penn State and they only give up 14 points in this game, which was Boise State's fewest points in a game all season long, going against a very good defense and one of Penn State's best players, Abdul Carter, injured in this game, so they didn't have him for all of the second half. When you look at what Penn State did, is it enough in the next round?
No, sir, it's not. They played really well. I would say that Ashton Jeanty, like I said, he still ran the ball well. So there's some things they could clean up on defense. Had a couple penalties on the defensive side of the ball. But again, offensively, they didn't have to do much because, again, to Emory's point, Boise State was not capitalizing on their opportunities. So yes, Drew Aller looked great because he had a high passer rating. He threw for 3 touchdowns. But if the game was a lot closer and he had to make more big-time clutch throws, well, we don't know if that would have happened, and we don't know if it would have been the same outcome. I agree totally. I think Penn State can build a lot upon this win, but they definitely were the more talented team. And James Franklin coached teams. They usually beat the teams that they're supposed to. But I think we can all look and say, although it looked good, the numbers look good, the rushing attack looked good, Penn State should be able to do more. And they're going to need to do more whether they face Notre Dame, whether they face Georgia, or even if they advance past that. To win a national championship, they're going to have to do more.
Yeah, you're going to have to play your best when you play your best at all times. And it gets tighter as you move forward. Damian knows this better than anybody with winning national champions and how this is how it is supposed to go. The closer you get to that title, the better the defenses are, the more precise the passing is, the more succinct the drives are. You can't allow these penalties and these missed opportunities, the sluggish play. And we talked about this at halftime. Penn State got too cute with some of the play calling in the first half. Unnecessary. They could have really blown this game out of the water early in this contest, but because they got too cute calling certain plays and trick plays, they got out of rhythm, they got out of sync, they just got away from what's working, and they found themselves in a dogfight for about a good 3 quarters until they started to open up. So all of that has to change if you want to win a national championship.
All 5 CFP games so far have been won by 10 or more points. So you can sit here and say, well, some teams maybe didn't deserve to be here and all that kind of conversation. But the teams that are still standing in Penn State, you look at what they did defensively to close this out. Interceptions late, the fact that off of a missed field goal, they come back and score that 58-yard touchdown run by Nick Singleton, who had a heck of a season for Penn State. There were times in this game where you looked at Penn State and go, okay, they can hang. So, Damian, you said that they didn't have enough or won't have enough in the next round against whether it's Georgia or Notre Dame. Is there a team that they match up better against?
I would say Arizona State, just because I think that would be another team that they can kind of use their skill set and take what they have, take the pieces they have, guys like Drew Aller, some of these receivers, and build on it. Because you're at a point in the year where you don't usually have the luxury of having a tune-up game. And essentially, this is what it turned out to be for Penn State. This was a tune-up game. So whether it's, Boise State or a team like Arizona State, they would have something to build on moving forward. But these other teams, like when you look at Texas has a much better defense. Like Oregon, it's another team. Ohio State, the way that they looked in the first round against Tennessee, like these are teams that if Penn State faced them right now and they played the way that they did tonight, I don't know if they would have a chance, because I don't even think the score was as indicative of the results of the game as we really think, as we make it out to be. The score looked really bad, but like you said, for 3 quarters, almost 3 quarters in a drive, this was a dogfight, and Boise State was knocking on the door of being one big play away from making this a really, really interesting game. So again, they won. Penn State, they had a good performance, good enough to win, but they definitely going to need more firepower behind them if they're going to make a deep run in this playoff.
Let me give you a chance for people to come at you and jump in your mentions right now.
Let's do it.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Emory, because I'm going to give him a shot here, because he already
got my mentions inflamed already last week.
He already got Georgia fans in his mentions up all in his business. So if you're Penn State, Emory, who do you want to face? Georgia or Notre Dame? Or does it even matter, because you're not going to beat either of those teams?
Well, here's the thing, and Damian laid
Look in the camera to tell we are that you're not winning anything.
Well, Damian laid it out perfectly, because he lined it up exactly how it's supposed to be if you're Penn State. Arizona State is the team that they want to play, because if they play the same exact game against Georgia or Notre Dame with those defenses, Penn State will lose that game 31-7. You know what I'm saying? So if they play the same game against Arizona State, they could win the game just how they beat Boise State. So what we talked about earlier, if you're playing the better teams as you go deeper into this postseason with those elite defenses that Notre Dame has, that Georgia has, that Oregon has, that Texas has, you can't go out there and, fumble the bag in terms of offensively speaking. You can't not convert these turnovers. You can't try to get cute and call creative plays that don't work. Like, that is going to get you blown out versus great defenses. So, not saying Arizona State is a good team, and if you have a problem, at me at Hakeem Dermish.
They got to beat. No. They got to beat either to even have a chance to be. Arizona State's not getting out beyond Texas, so that's not going to be a matchup. If I'm Penn State right now, I'm rooting for Georgia to beat Notre Dame. That's what because if I'm a Penn State fan, I think I could beat Georgia. I think I could. Gunnar Stockton, I don't know. What's he going to do in a big spot? Notre Dame, they will run it down your throat. And I know they got a good run game in terms of stopping it, but Genty still had over 100 yards. Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love will just obliterate you. You see what I'm saying here? I'm saying if I'm Penn State, I want to see Georgia. I don't want to see Notre Dame.
I think I'd rather go Arizona State.
But you can't get them. The next game, they're facing the winner of Georgia and Notre Dame.
You know what?
You got to get through them to even have a chance to get.
You got to pick Notre Dame out of that matchup.
Yeah, you got to pick Notre Dame. You got to pick Notre Dame, because you feel like if you got Notre Dame and if you were Penn State, you feel like, okay, same rules apply here. If we stop the run and make Riley Leonard beat us consistently throwing the football, we like our chances. You saw how they played those receivers of Boise State. That's where I feel like Penn State can say, okay, we would rather Notre Dame. But Georgia defensively gets pressure like how Boise got pressure tonight. I think that will be a problem for this Penn State offensive line. They had issues in communicating. Drew Aller was under duress. He's not the most mobile guy. So Georgia's going to come all throughout the ball game. That's not a defensive matchup you want.
I'm looking forward to it. Whoever Penn State gets, it's going to be good. I'm not saying automatically that either Georgia or Notre Dame's beating Penn State. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. Okay, Penn State fans, I stand strong with the Big Ten.
And Hakeem Dermish.
Damian, 2-time national champ, former Louisiana running back, Emory Hunt here on CBS Sports HQ. Men, thank you. Texas, the favorite, at plus 310 to win the national championship, followed closely by Ohio State and Penn State. Penn State's won 2 national champions. Could this be a third? Could it be Oregon chasing its first national championship? We'll see all these teams play on New Year's Day. 3 more quarterfinal games coming up on Wednesday.